Hey everyone. Sabrina, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay. Hey everyone, go ahead. We'll give everyone a minute to join here. Apologies for being a little late. Again, you can use the raise hand feature, the chat, or the Q&A to ask your question. And once we've done that, I'll just go ahead and start answering people's questions. Hey everyone. No questions yet. So if you got any questions, please let us know. You can use the chat, the QA, or you can use the raise hand function if you'd like to ask your question verbally. We've got a quiet crew today. I know someone has a question about something. Here we go. Daniel, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, okay. So it might be a simple one, but hey, why not? Just yesterday, I was using raw SQL to pull back data that I want to display out to my end user. I saw how to do it to display it on a form via the CSV editor, I believe.
Sure.
But I do like the, what is it, the report editor? What's the other way? The
data grid or advanced data grid?
Yeah, I'd prefer.
Repeater?
No, I'd prefer the you know, how we display normal reports where you can design editor, I think.
Okay.
Editor. So how can I do that raw SQL and have it be displayed better, that they can do all the sorting and filtering and everything? Is that making sense?
It is, yeah. You can actually use raw SQL as a data source in a report. Let's look at that as a first option. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the challenge with that is I have variables that I need to plug into that. So I have a form that they kind of put in data to search, right?
Okay.
And then I pass that to the raw SQL and want to display that out to them to where they can filter.
Okay, so I have a form. I'm going to do something on the form, and then the form is going to redirect me to a report with my data displayed?
Ideally, yes.
Oh, okay. Then that's fun. What we can do, this takes a little bit of getting used to it. I'm kind of in an odd place today, so if it's extra loud or echoey, I do apologize. So a couple things we can do there. Now, can we pass we can't pass inputs to the raw SQL step directly. But we can put our raw SQL step in our flow reporting data source, and we can call that directly. That's an option. Or we could leverage it. You want all the things that you get on a report, which means we don't want to use a data grid or a data repeater on a form. We actually want like a decisions report, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Yep. Let's see what this could look like. This is a little bit of setup to kind of get to where we're going to be. So I'm going to burn through this like normal, but bear with me here, and I think we'll get something here. So this is like a raw SQL report example. All right, so I'm going to build my flow here, and I'm on my laptop, so I've got a bunch of extra windows. So I don't know if the right side of my screen is not being displayed. Sabrina, I'm going to hide the Q&A session. So if somebody asks in that, if you could just go ahead and drop that into the chat window automatically, that'd be greatly appreciated. All right, so what I'm going to do is build a decisions form here, and I'm going to quickly create your form. So let me go, I'll get rid of it. Minimize that. This is much harder. We're moving offices, and I am away from my multitude of monitors. That makes my life much easier. I'm going to put a button on here, and I'm just going to put a text box. The idea here is this will be like email, or this will be, yeah, it'll be email address. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair that form step up with a end form session step that I'm going to configure in a particular way. All right, so end form session is going to be, I'm going to open URL or navigate. Let's navigate. I'm going to stay within the portal. I'm going to navigate to a particular folder and a particular page name, and I'm going to specify parameters here. So what I'm going to do is add a parameter. So what this is going to do is, if you look at my URL, I have the flow ID equals and action edit parameters. I can interject my own custom parameters into the URL. And then what I'm going to leverage is a step called get page variable, which allows me to pull those parameters into the flow. And that'll allow me to easily pass filters into a flow that's going to run a raw SQL statement, which will render a report with all of the default pieces that default report behaviors that you see. I'm going to name this thing email address, all one word, keep its type string. Then on email address, I'm going to take the value from my form and pass it in. And what I need to do is duplicate my tabs here. And I need to set up my other pieces. So I'm going to add a normal folder called dashboard or something. No, that's not it. I'm also bad at typing on my laptop keyboard. Bad at typing in general. Dashboard here. I'm going to go create a page, create report, page dashboard, page, create. I'm going to put a report viewer on this page. I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. I'll come back and create my report in just a minute. I'm going to go to dashboard. I'm going to add that page to my folder. So here's the page I just created. Oh, this one, page one. I need to name these better. Its name will be data or something. So now, right now, I have a folder with a report with no content. So I'm going to go create a flow of a particular behavior. So I'll come down to, for reports and pages, I'm going to find a report data source flow here. Report data source flow 1. Now this is a flow that I can run. And now just to note, this isn't going to handle large data sets well, but it allows us to. What I can do is I can run my raw SQL step in here. So I need two steps. I need raw SQL, and I'm going to search for page, and I'll find a get page variable step. Okay. So get page variable, data type, change this to URL variable, and the variable name will be not that, it will be email address, which is what I'm specifying on the inform session step. And now this passes out a value. sorry, set that wrong. Leave it as page variable. This is going to be called found email. I'll walk back through all this again in more detail. Here's my raw SQL step, return data. I'm going to just run a quick command that's going to say, I'm going to do a text merge, and I'll say, you should see I have found email as a property here. And if I select star from entity account where email address equals found email. Go ahead and save this. And what I'm going to do is on my raw SQL step, I know this is an account. I'm just going to select account. You're probably going to have a defined type at some point. I'm just leveraging the fact that I'm querying the account table to have the raw SQL step bind its output to an account, because I need to have a list of a data object. I need to have a complex type list as my output. So I'll come to output here and say report account data, change the type to account, and set it to is list. Close this with a save. And then I'm going to connect my done path, and report account data will be the output of my, which is result, account array, which comes from my raw SQL step. One of the things we do want to do is connect our failed path, because the report designer doesn't have a property in here. If I look in Data Explorer, there's this thing called page context ID. And if this step is in a flow behavior that doesn't have page context ID, this step will fail. And that's why we want to make sure our failed path is handled. Oop, not that one, this one right here. I'm doing that on the wrong step. The raw SQL step won't fail, the get page variable step will fail. So what I'm going to do is come to it, add an outcome for an exception, and still let it run the raw SQL step. And I think that will return me no results if I pass a null in for my email statement, but we'll see. And in fact, what I could do is something like this. If it fails, I'll just run all of them. So I'll edit my query here and remove my where clause and just say, give me all the accounts if it fails. I'm going to save this. Now that I've built this flow, I can go and I can create a report. And if I click on data sources, I'll have a new category here called flow reports. And in that, I have two options. Report data source flow is the flow I just created. And if I add this, you'll notice it has the properties of an account because I specified account on the end step of that flow. Created on date, created by. So you can see it's actually failing to get that page variable step. Thus, it's giving me all of the accounts that are on my system right now. That flow is running when the flow is rendered. The flow pop is the data source for this report, thus it being a report data source flow. So I'll save this, come back to my page, I'll go to my report, and I will pick the report I just created, which is report 1. And I will save this, and I will come back to dashboard. No data to display is not what I was expecting to see there. Let's report 1. If I run this, it returns the results. I think this is a different report, maybe. Let me see, report 1, edit default report, report data source flow. Oh God. What's wrong with this? Oh, here we go. I better just hit something in our newer version. What's wrong with this thing? My report is working. Is there an error? Let me see. Bear with me, I'm troubleshooting a bit here. I'm not going to talk as much because I'm trying to figure out.
Troubleshooting steps are always good too, because I'm sure we all run into it.
System string, is that from me? Okay, it's not showing me any data. All right, well, let's get the other piece here put together. So this is flow one. No, I don't want to break that. It's still over here. Great. Ah, all right, I have my folder. So let me get my folder ID out of the URL here. And my page name out of here. And let me at least confirm my redirect behavior. What I'll do, let's try this. I'm actually going to go to my report. I'm going to add that as an action onto my folder. So manage page dashboard, add flow as action. I'll run and filter this report. I will pick the flow I just created, which is flow one. Yep, add action. So I should see the action now. And if I run that and put in admin at decisions.com. Okay, one of the things you will notice if you see in the URL is I just put a new parameter. Using that inform session step, I was able to add a new parameter into the header here. And I can now get this flow to take that in. The question is, why is my report not running when it's on my report viewer, when it will run here? I can run it. Something's wrong here. That doesn't make any sense to me. This is the right report. It's here. Let me try this a slightly different way since this is being a pain. Let me add it as a page report. See if I can get this bit to behave slightly differently. Do page reports not work in 7? What is wrong here? There is an error happening. (1221), that is me. Reports, system string to property, user type of account type. Okay, there's some kind of cast error going on. All right, let me try something. I'm going to build a flow structure here. I'll walk back and I apologize. I'm all over the place. I'm hitting an issue that's not clear to me right now. This is test flow structure. I'm going to call this email address. And created, I'll say created by strings. I'm going to modify my report here and make sure that there's not some weird cast issue going on in my flow that's hidden from me. Here's my report data source flow. And I need to find the list mapping step. I'm going to move away from my accounts here. Yes. Done. And these are going to output data rows now. And I'm going to modify the query here. So I know what's going in the first two fields. So now I can do is output test flow structure. My input will be my data row, which will be result dynamic data row. And then I will, we still didn't do that for this one. Input input field 1 string address. Okay, now I'll change this to be my test flow structure. And it will get its data from outputs. Will this work? Okay, now I need to edit my report. Created on date no longer exists. Yeah, I know. Oh, it failed. No result path for failed. Okay, that's fine. Column not found. So my flow, if it fails, what happens if I just pass my fail path to my list mapper? It's not even I don't understand what's going on. Okay, that's good. Now we're getting no data in our report. So what's wrong? Let's run our flow. Okay, on exception, raw SQL is failing. What is it failing for? Well, that would be because I truncated the T on account. So that's fine. All right, let's try it again. Okay, so flow reporting data sources don't work on report viewers v7. This should work. The fact that this isn't working, I think, is because I'm hitting an issue in 7. All this work I've been doing here is about me trying to figure out why I'm not able to display this. This should absolutely work. So can I just, let me change my approach here. Let me look at the options for redirect. Maybe I don't need a report viewer. I'm going to navigate about display a report. Email address, report ID. Let me find that. Find that report ID. I can't prove it to you right now because I'm failing, but this will work. This approach of using this informed session step and by passing a parameter into the URL absolutely does work. I'm just
I think that was the biggest one that I was missing was the inform session step, because I was having a hard time passing in, right? You can do a static, SQL query from an external database, but it's passing that variable that.
There, I got it to work in a way I didn't want to. So what I did here, I would advise you have the most flexibility over the approach I was starting with, but I'm failing to get to work. And what I did, so let's walk back through all the things I set up here and a little bit slower. I just have a simple form with a text box. That one's straightforward, right? I feed an email address from a user. And on inform session step, what I did is I say navigate to a particular location. So navigate to a folder ID or a page name. Now you can make this dynamic if you need it to be, right? But I just specified these things as static values. And then I selected specify parameters, and then you name a parameter. So you add a new URL parameter to include with the type, and then you get that value from email address. And so when you run this, no matter where you run it from, it'll take you to that folder. So if I just run flow 1, here, it's going to navigate me to that dashboard folder we created. Right now, that report is a reporting data source flow, and it has a get page variable step that expects to find a variable in the URL and email address, and then passes that into a raw SQL step, and then does some data mapping from the raw SQL. Now, the way I had this before should work, where you specify a data type as the output and let the step bind your raw SQL return to the data type. It just needs to match, there needs to be a property name match for whatever you're returning, whatever your select looks like. And then you don't need to do this list mapping step. You can pass that straight to the end step here. And at that point, what you would get is, if I walk that change back, and let's assume I'm just looking here at let's assume I'm looking at a report viewer on a page and not just a direct report. What I will get, though I don't know that it's actually, filtering right now. It might not be. Okay, an email address. Yeah, and then what you'd get is a filtered list, and it would only be showing admin, but it would be showing it in a report viewer on the bottom here. So what version are you currently running on?
7.4.
Okay, so that might be part of the problem here.
Which is fine. I mean, I tend to not have end users get into the portal, and I do have them tend to launch the reports outside of that, right? So I have a dashboard or a page that'll pop up the form and then pop up the report with the results. So that actually works for me versus putting it on the page here.
Yeah, I would still advise using a page if you're ever doing anything. Like, you can still create like a Chromeless view of your portal. I would, and you can control how this shows up to your users. You retain the most control using a folder page combination for permissioning and other things instead of just a report itself. But,
Gotcha.
I recommend using that pattern, even though it's failing me live right now. So I know that was fast. We post the YouTube recordings. Hopefully that helps you a bit.
Yeah, definitely. That gives me a better vision other than throwing it on the form with a CSV viewer.
Right. Yeah, no, that would be a terrible experience for users.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be back I don't see any other questions yet. I'll be back in just a moment. Apologies, just 2 seconds and I'll be back. If someone wants to pop a question in or use the raise hand function. Anybody have any questions, or should we just go ahead and cut it short for today? We should start a rule if it's your first time joining. It's like Fight Club is your first time joining, you have to ask a question. But that would probably make people not want to join, which is not what we want. Okay, if that's it, then we'll go ahead, I think, and cut it short for today if there's no other questions. Daniel, thank you for the question. I'll follow up and make sure that these things are working in 7.4 like they're supposed to. Make sure that I'm not advising you on a pattern that's going to be problematic for you. So I appreciate the question and the opportunity to fail publicly. So that was good. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon.